still waiting for her. Okay, so let me go ahead and introduce the first person who's already here. Her name is Akosua Afrakomah Peprah. Most people know her just as Akosua Peprah. And she is a feminist social worker whose work focuses on community and social justice, youth services, and mental health. She was in the EU in 2019. She has experience working in 5 countries across Africa: Mali, Niger, Ghana, Uganda, and the UN agencies on issues involving child marriage, poverty, education, mental health. Okay, she's very experienced. In 2016, she founded Naa Ode Foundation, which has a mission to end reproductive health education, to provide resources to marginal. Currently, she is working to provide scholarship opportunities to girls in Uyobo, which is a rural community in Uganda. Please let us give Akosua a very hearty welcome. Hi, Akosua, welcome. I saw you lubricating your throat because I know you're about to spit some truth today.
Hi, Nana. It's really good to be in the same space with you, you know.
Yes, I am a fangirl. We have been fangirling nearly for a long time. Yes, so very, very happy to see you here today as well. Let me check if the second speaker is here. No, she's not. Okay.
Okay.
But we can talk feminist culture in Ghana already, and when she comes, I will introduce her and we will continue the conversation. So in Ghana, we're not new to feminist organizing or to feminist movements or resistance against patriarchy. This week we had Founders Day and we have women like Agnes Obrewa Tego Kakupong, who was a market woman and was key in fundraising for Ghana's independence. We had women like Mabel Dampa, who was the first member of parliament for Ghana and was a journalist. We had people like Rebecca Ayite, who was a businesswoman in flour and a feminist activist. So this is not new to Ghana. However, we find that people are not too eager to take on the label of feminist in Ghana. So we want to talk about why it's such a controversial topic, even though we're not new to it, both as a nation and in our individual cultures. And some of the mixed perceptions that are around feminism, and also what role Ghanaian women have in changing these narratives towards organizing towards collective freedom for all of us. So I have a question, Akosua. My question is, when did you label yourself as a feminist and why?
This is anyways, first of all, thank you for inviting me. And then thanks to Elizabeth for putting this all together. Go girl. I think this is a really powerful program. So thank you. And it's good to be in the same space with you, Nana. So I think that with me, I have been a feminist all my life. I know you get this, a lot of people say this all the time, but let me tell you, my feminism stems from me wanting freedom. Some people will say because I was lazy, whatever. And I remember when I was young, I was in primary school, my mom would say that on Saturdays, I will wash my clothing and I will wash that of my brother. In book, I don't like to wash. Even me washing my own clothing is too much of a hard work. Why should I add my brother's one when he has 2 hands? So then I rebel. I'm like, I'm not washing this boy's clothes when I don't wear it. So for me, it was like, freedom for me so that I can get let and not deal with his trouble. Also, when it came to doing hard work, like domestic chores in the house. When you are eating, you don't invite me to come and eat, or you don't wait for me to come and eat the food with you. So why would you put your bowl down for me to come and wash the bowl? So my feminism stands for me being free. Not maybe because I was too lazy to even indulge in the domestic chores, right? But I rebelled to do least because we are both living in the same house and we both need to do the work. And also, when I was young, there is this program that really shaped me. It was on Metro TV, and it was by Mame Dokono at that time. And during that time, she was doing this work where she would go into like very rural communities, and she would bring to stories about women who were being beaten, who were being abused, women whose husband had poured acids on them because they refused to listen to them or because they felt entitled to them. So my mom, we used to watch that program a lot, and I used to ask a lot of questions because although she did a great job in bringing these narratives to the mainstream media, it was as if these women were still not getting justice, right? And then people would say that, and then there was a lot of victim blaming if it came to rape. So I kept asking my mom, "Now then, yeah, they are still way back so, or man, still like Obi I know she." So I got like, no, I knew there was something wrong. And also with my own family, I grew up in a very abusive home. So I saw the dynamics of my mom always depending on my dad and the power, right? The dynamic of how she couldn't even fend for herself. So then this man has all the power. So she didn't have a sense of self. So growing up, I became very aware that both men and women didn't have the same access. And also I wanted to live in a world where I was free to make my own decisions. I remember my grandmother would tell me, say, girls don't play with boys, but me, I would play with the boys. I would stay out with them until 11 p.m. and my grandmother would rebel. I'm like, this is what I want, right? So I knew I have always been a feminist, but I didn't know the name until I came to the United States. And then I'm like, oh, so this is feminism. So I have always been a feminist. I've always rebelled. I've always lived a life that makes me free, that makes me exist on my own terms without looking at any culture or anything like that. So yeah.
Great, thank you. So basically, it's the same thing here again, where the sensibilities and your actions were in line, but the label and the vocabulary around it came later.
Mm-hmm.
But there are lots of perceptions about feminism, particularly in Ghana, increasingly over the years with more online spaces and people being vocal online. What do you think are some of the reasons why there are certain perceptions, like for example, feminists are angry and bitter? This isn't just a Ghanaian issue, it's a global issue, but specifically in Ghana, what are some of the reasons that happens?
So I'm going to look at the issue in two ways. The first thing is, why do people shy away from the word feminism, and then the perceptions, right? So the shyness from it. Look at a cultural perspective, right? I'm an Ashanti woman. And in our culture, we have some adages that put men on a pedestal. So, it's what's with Nabemabo, those things that put men, those names that put men on the pedestal, that makes that men are the most important. Men make all the decision. And so you are a woman, you've not been regarded to be in a position of power or to lead. And here you are as a feminist coming forward to say, no, I deserve this. I demand this. Like, how dare you? And if you are in the Ashanti culture, power is something that we cling on to, right? Power is very important. And we've always seen power to belong to men. So you coming as woman, you are going to be seen in a different way. Also, the idea of respectability politics, right? If you are a woman and you're a leader, oh, Gangalia, or Bachinchinchi, there's so many names that we give to you. And if you are in an Ashanti culture and they give you those names, it comes with a negative tone, right? Like nobody wants to associate themselves with, oh, this woman is too tough. Mano idea or Pentecost, right? So those kind of attributes, and then it comes to also likability politics, where Nobody will want to associate themselves with a woman who has been negated or who has a negative image in society, or you want to take power from men. You don't respect, you don't do this. And so people try to shy away or distance themselves from that name because they don't want to be seen in community as a bad woman, or as a woman who's always troublesome, because that can be a very lonely thing when society sees you in that light. Now, talking about the perception, I really don't like to focus on the perception because, as I always say, whatever you think about me, believe all of it and go and lie on the street and let a car run over you, right? But then, if we say that feminists are like men haters, feminists are bitter and angry. Let's look at the idea of this is feminists are men haters. So is rape, right? You raping a woman is in a way you hating that woman. I remember when I used to do a lot of online advocacy, men will walk to me and tell me, if we catch you, we will rape you. It's like they hated me so much that their way of coming for me is say they will rape me. Murdering women because they refuse to succumb to your whims. Taxing 20% on sanitary pads. These are all hate against women. But for some reason, when women are fighting for their rights, we want to turn it and we want to turn it around and say that we hate men. The perception is that we hate men, we are bitter. This is a way, I always think this is a way that patriarchy tried to use to still cling on to power in feminist movement. Because if you are organizing, right, and I'm the center, I don't want to hate men. I don't want men to say that I hate them. And I put you in the center. Everything that I organize is around you because I don't want to offend you. I don't want to step on your toes. I don't want you to feel that I'm coming for you. So I'm always very careful in how I do my organization. And I put you in the center, right? If I put you in the center, it means that you're so powerful that I don't want to come close to you. So it's a way, I think all these perceptions are ways that society or patriarchy still want women to also like center them in our feminist movement, because you cannot oppress me and expect sympathy from me. You cannot oppress me and want me to have empathy for you, right? So I always say, whatever that you think about feminism, if I am fighting for my rights, if I'm fighting to have the same access in this world, and you think that I am angry and bitter, deal with that. That is your problem. Go to therapy. I ain't got no problem with that. It's not me, it is you. So I think all those perceptions is patriarchy's way of just centering themselves and still holding on to power. But not today.
Not today. Thanks, Akosua. I want to encourage those online and those of us here, if you have a question, you can hold on to it. We will take the questions. But I wanted to come back on something you said about the violence that is meted on women or people who are not, like the picture of what's supposed to be, male, straight. The violence that's meted against them is very strong, and yet when there is resistance, is expected to be very meek and soft and polite, and how that also influences the impressions that we have about feminism and feminists in Ghana. I wanted to ask if, as an educated woman, and also a woman who works with rural communities, and you are on the ground, what do you make of this perception that feminism is elitist?
Okay, I have an answer for that. Hold on. Okay, so I'm going to look at this in terms of like privilege, education, language, power, and education, and also access, right? So when we talk about feminism and feminism being elitism or elitist, it's because of the face that we see when we talk about feminism in today's Ghanaian culture, right? Who is the face of feminism? Who is being invited to come to all these feminist conferences or all these spaces like this? It's mostly women who are educated, who have the language to eloquently express themselves, women who hold leadership positions, who have wealth, right? We have created this in a world where women from all socio-economic backgrounds face sexism and misogyny, because I'm talking about Black women, famine, where there isn't enough resources for women with disability. Feminism is only being discussed in the corridors of women who are educated, right? And then also, who has access to it? When we do a lot of organization, we do it online, right? Twitter, social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We forget about the digital divide. But a lot of women in the rural areas, they don't have access to the internet, right? They don't have access to and even if, right, in internet. Also, we all do a lot of organizing in the capital regions, Accra, Kumasi. But we also forget that a lot of women who live in the rural areas do not have access to these rural areas, right? And so feminism has been this thing where only women who have access, even if when we do, we don't even also take into consideration women with disability, because when we do this feminism in like Accra or even on WhatsApp, what about women who are blind? How are they going to read it? Right. And so it has been this small group, this niche of women who are educated, who know all the fancy words, sexism, misogyny, all these things, right? And then we have left the women on the margin. When I say margin, I'm talking about bell hooks, talking about being part of the whole, but existing outside the body, right? So feminism is only for women who are on the center. So when I go to a lot of rural areas, and you see how these women are organizing, but then they don't know what feminism is. They've never heard about the name. And so one, I think in Damongo, a woman said that, hey, say not your mom money how no. A man no money how no. The women who don't have any troubles are feminist. And in a way, it is true, right? Because it's been so centered on women who are educated. So I think that is why it's being seen as an elite for elite women. Yeah.
But is there a way to follow up on that? Is there a way to bridge that gap within women who are living very true realities, who are organizing, and we would call them feminist activists, but they don't have access to that vocabulary? How do we bridge that reality to women who are maybe younger, more educated, not necessarily from rich backgrounds, but are privileged due to education, who understand feminism not just in their local context, but also the connection across the diaspora of feminist organizing? Because when, for example, if I say I'm a feminist, I am saying that with the understanding that there are people that have come before me, like the Hooks and Angela Davis, and I tap into that when I call myself a feminist. How do we bridge those two very valid but very different realities?
Excuse me. I think that we need a mass-based political movement. And when I say that, I mean that we have to do the work where we will bring both the knowledge, the lived experiences, the awareness of both women who live on the margins and on the center, right? Let's look at the current climate about feminism. Feminism is emerging from like privileged women who live in the center, whose perspectives and then their realities does not include women from the margins. So I'm talking about from the margins, I'm talking about women who are not educated, who are who don't have access to the vocabulary, who are poor and all that. And then feminist theories is also emerging from women who are privileged and not from the center. When this happens, right, feminism lacks wholeness, it lacks nuances. So I think that we have the responsibility, we have to do the work where we have to bring all women from both center and margins. We have to take into consideration their knowledge, unless I'm not understanding the question that you asked.
No, you're answering it.
Okay, so we have to do the work of bringing the experiences, the awareness, the lived experiences of women from the margins. A typical example is when I used to work in Niger. No, it was Mali. And then I went there and I had all this knowledge. I had the vocabulary. I've read Bell Hooks, Angela Davis. I've read all these women. So I'm going with this formal education knowledge. And then I went there and these women are already there, right? In Chi, they say that Naa Ode Adenku, which means the person sitting by the fire knows how the fire is burning. But if I am sitting by my fire, I'm going to find ways to prevent the fire from burning me. So when we went there and we were talking about issues concerning child marriage, these women already knew how to deal with the child marriage, right? They didn't have the vocabulary, but because they've lived in the community and they've seen it, they knew how to go about it. But because they have been so disenfranchised, they didn't have the power, the leadership, right? And so when we went in there and we said, okay, we're going to let you lead. It's like giving them the power. Within 24 hours, these women came with a framework. They came, they knew who was to go to, they knew the men to go to, they knew who was an ally, they knew who wasn't an ally. And me with all my books and my knowledge, I was just sitting down there and these women who didn't even know what feminism is, knew how they needed to solve the situation. And so it is our responsibility to, when we organize, we need to find a way to organize beyond social media. We need to find a way to bring these women on the margins, because if not that, we're not going to have a revolutionary feminism. We're not going to have a transformative feminism. We're not going to have a feminism that is impacting lives, right? Because look at Ghana, for example. There is, look at the global gap. Imagine in Ghana, if women from all socio-economic backgrounds had an idea of feminism, know what the meaning of having access to abortion can do for them. And one day we decide that women from all Ghana are going to rally. Do you know how powerful that is? Do you know how many bald heads these old men will get in the parliament houses? My goodness, it's going to be this extreme, like women from the market, from Damongo, from deep in the rural villages, coming and holding placards, give us freedom. You know how powerful it is. But for now, it's only a few women who people think that we have no worries because we have education and everything. People don't really take us serious. But if we have all these women, so I think we really, in order to break this, we have to do a lot of organizing. And it's slow, right? It is very slow because you have to convince all these women who don't have an education. And we have been socialized in a way that women think they don't have the power. So it is slow, but once we are able to reach and have a mass-based political movement, it's going to be very impactful. So I think that is the way that we can actually bridge this gap.
Thank you. So a mass-based political movement. I like that. Yes. Now I had a question, but I want to check if anyone in the audience has questions or inputs at this time. Yes. I think it is will help. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much for the session. I'm actually a lot of what you're saying about bridging the gap between women in marginalized areas and women from more privileged areas. What if other women don't want to take part in this because they are okay where they are? So I'm asking this as somebody who engaged in a conversation with random women on campus. Okay. In Cape Coast. And so I asked them, what do you think about equality? What do you think about women having freedom? And then she said, oh, I mean, most of them said, oh, they want men to still be, in power because they are comfortable where they are. And that if women are given equality, it's almost like the same responsibility will be expected of us. And so then they don't like that. They want a situation where somebody is making their decisions for them. Somebody would be held responsible for them. Somebody would have to take care of them. They want that space. They don't want what feminists are fighting for. So with women like that, in the society, how then do we really rally together as women and fight for freedom and fight against oppression when some of us women actually like the oppression?
That is an interesting question. Thank you for the question. So, I'm a feminist, right? But child, do I like a man to take care of me? Hey, honey, I like to. Why not? And what's someone in my one pay? Who was sitting down there and then honey will be drinking and then they will close their mouth, right? I think it's because, again, right, how we have been socialized is extremely powerful, especially when how you also grew up influences how you interact with life. So with me, I always like to use my life as an example. I grew up in a very abusive home. For a long time, I thought that love and abuse can coexist. So if a man loves you and he doesn't beat you, it doesn't mean that the man loves you. It took me a long time on therapy and on learning, because how I grew up actually shaped who I was until I grew up to read so much into women. And so these women that, again, it also talks about our feminism. It also talks about the negative connotation that we have. And so even if these women go on Twitter or whatever, and they see women feminists talking, I swear to God, they will scroll down because we don't have anything good to say. So in a way, I think that we need to accept the fact it is okay for women to want men to take care of them. It is okay for women to for men to take care. It is okay for women to want men to lead. But what is not okay is where this idea of leading is coming from. To some men, right? To some men, paying to some women, like a man paying a bill is the way that they lead, right? I think leading is very subjective and comes in so many different definitions. A man paying bills is the way that they lead. But okay, I'm blabbing. Let me slow down and then think through this whole situation. I have an answer for that. But then I would say that the way that we are raised also influence that part. And then I think that the question was, how do we organize with women who are okay with the oppression?
Yeah, who think feminists just come to give them trouble because they were fine being taken care of. Now she has to earn a living.
Now she has to do what?
She has to take care of herself because independence and women's rights.
No, see, that is the thing. That is the negative thing that comes with feminism. Was that the question, right? Like she thought that she was free. That she was free. Now feminists have to come and make her life miserable. You can never be free. No. When you live in a sexist, capitalist, patriarchal environment, economy, you can never tell me that you are free. We are actually coming to make your life better. This is the thing. I have the question. I have the right question. We have been socialized in a way to think that men are supposed to be the be-all and all. Men are supposed to take care of us. But then what experience does it come with the man taking care of us? You need to sit down and ask yourself that question, right? Because if I am taking care of you, if I am paying your bills and everything, I do believe that I own you. I do believe that your entire existence belongs to me. So when I make a decision, you do not have any say in that. When feminism comes in, feminism tells me, it doesn't mean that women are not supposed to let men take care of them, but it helps you to have this control, full autonomy over your body. It helps you to know that, fine, you are taking care of me, but then I also need to have a say in how things go in this world, or in how things go in my household, right? Because especially when I was growing up and my dad was taking care of my mom and everything, he could abuse my mom anytime because but if my mom had the feminist language, had the feminist tool, and she will in a way would have had a dialogue with my dad, or she would in a way also had the empowering tool, which will help her to gain access, like economic freedom, and then she will be doing work in a way that she will also have her own money. I don't know if I'm making sense.
A little bit, but I have a follow-up question, which I want to push back a bit on that. At what cost? Because the idea, and I really related to your question. Sir, what's your name? I'm Afra. Yes, I really related to your question because also you hear not just from women's side as well. I've been approached and told that you are the one making life difficult for us, from women. And on the other hand as well, there are a lot of pseudo progressive educated men who want educated career women, but they also want to be, to be submissive. So it's like pseudo freedom. So on both sides, that question is there. My question is, so at what cost? If I'm a woman who says, yeah, I want my freedoms, but I also want to have the benefits of patriarchy that I had when I was seen as weaker and to be taken care of. And I partner with a man who agrees with that, with the provision that he is like the head and he makes decisions that are final. How do you then reconcile those two things?
So the question is that, repeat your question again.
I'm asking at what cost? Basically, that's my question. You want to be taken care of, fine. You you don't want to be doing too much because you are in a good place. But then, and you want to partner with a man, but that man is also believes in that, but there's a cost to it because he also has his privilege that he has been assured of through his socialization as a man, and then coming to conflict with that because you're in a freedom space that really isn't freedom. And basically that's what I'm trying to push so that you can answer, like, what is the cost of saying that you can hold both things and both things can be true?
I don't believe that you can have both wills, right? Looking at it, especially I'm looking at it from white feminism perspective. Because you see, power, the whole idea here is power, right? Who has that power? Who is clinging on to that power? And right, and the reason why a lot of men do not like feminists is because they think that we are taking away their power. We are demasculine, like we are taking something away from them that they don't want. And so for me, I'm a very independent woman. I make my own money. I'm educated. I also want a man to take care of me because it's fine if you are my husband and you take care of me. But right, if I get married or if I'm in a partnership with a man, here is the thing. I have my own urgency, right? This is the feminism part. I have control over I have autonomy over my own life. You are coming in and taking care of me. It's a partnership that we are supposed to. So I have as equal say as you have to, as you. If we are married and we are living in the house, you have your, give me 1 minute.
I just want to come in here and just say that I'm just going to say something I'm thinking about as you're having this conversation, and wait for Akosua to come back. That there is a problem with total dependency on that human being, be you a man or a woman. Yeah. So even in our day-to-day lives, you have friends who you become very close with, and then you establish this sense of you cannot do things without that person. Yeah. And when that person steps out of your bubble, you kind of feel like, why do you do this without me? And then even beyond friendship, you just can't, as a human being, be you a man or woman, depend on someone totally. Yeah. And then in the case of being taken care of, if you're in a relationship, the man is going to take care of certain needs for the woman, and the woman will also take care of certain needs. but that shouldn't determine the fact, that shouldn't kind of frame your whole life as a woman. So just because a man is providing X, Y, it doesn't mean that you have to fix your life towards him. You also need to have your life together. So I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And I don't want to blab too much, but I believe that if every human being, be you a man or a woman, is able to just find your course and stick to it, you're going to find someone eventually who would understand what you're looking for and who you would come to terms with, because we are all not perfect. And so when you find that person, you're able to move on. But I don't want us to think that being taken care of is only a man taking care of a woman and so defining certain things. Because in a relationship, a woman takes care of a man and a man should. It's a two-way thing. So let's look at it that way as well, even though we are covering the basis of feminism.
Yeah, okay. So if I understand, you're talking about being taken care of doesn't just mean finances. And so the scope of it is wider.
It's wider than finances. And being taken care of doesn't mean that you should build your whole life around that person. Because you could have all the money in the world, but you need someone to listen to you. And that is a form of care.
Yeah.
So having someone to listen to you is a form of care. At that moment, what you need is a listening ear. At that moment, all you need is someone to feed you because you are sick. So it's not just within the monetary value. And my point, most importantly, is that the fact that you have someone in your life who is willing to sacrifice parts of their life to be with you doesn't mean that you frame your whole life around them, because they may die. What becomes of you? So you should build your life in a way that the person you are with is a plus, and if the person isn't there, you are still able to move on.
Okay, yeah, understood. And I think Sheila agrees with you. She said we take care of each other equally in the chat. So Akosua, I don't know if you caught on, but basically we shifted the conversation to talking about expanding it beyond finances. So what does it mean to take care of each other, right? Because there's also emotional labor in a relationship. There's so much more that goes on. And so once we expand that, if we're taking care of each other equally, then we don't relate finances to power, even though that's typically what we have been used to. Is there any other question in the audience or online? Yes, I see one hand up.
Yeah, I think it's my name is Ava. And it's a very interesting conversation that we've just had. So I have something that I would like to respond to and then also pose a question through that. So the first question I want to respond to, I think, is the question that came from upfront. And I was talking about it with my friend here. We were just saying that I think for a lot of women, especially in the Ghanaian context, not just Ghanaian, but in different African contexts in general, the idea of feminism sometimes feels like you're being forced into responsibility. Well, that's not the case. It's just expanding your choices as a woman. If you as a woman decide that you are happy in a domestic sphere, you don't want the responsibility of work, and that's agreed upon in your partnership, that's your right to do that. It is not saying that you are being forced into the formal work economy, you're forced to take up a presidential position, etc. It's not exclusive. They can be mutually exclusive things, you know? And I think that has to be put into the conversation, that it's just about choice rather than pushing into the adoption of male roles, which feminism is not. So it's fine for women to also be perfectly happy in the context that they are, whilst not seeing that as internalized patriarchy as well. Then the second question I have is, how do you think this idea and this notion of how feminism is viewed in Ghana, how does that function in mother-daughter relationships, maternal relationships in Ghanaian context? That's something I'm quite interested in.
Thank you. We have a question online, so I will take that as well before we answer that. Adelaide, I see you.
Yes, thank you, Nanaya. So for me, it's more of a contribution and an answer to the initial question that was asked. Sorry to take us back, but then I believe the question that was asked was, how do we rally women who feel like they are happy where they are into the feminist movement? Why would they want to join the feminist movement? And I think in answer to that, a lot of our answers have been centered around the sphere of relationships. So a relationship between a romantic partnership between a man and a woman. And I think that for such people who are okay with the state of their romantic relationships or their relationship with men in the domestic setting, I think it's important for them to be taken through a process of unlearning. I mean, we cannot force people to unlearn, but then we can guide them, we can give them the tools that cause them to question the status quo. Because feminism goes way beyond relationships. I mean, feminism is a social and political issue. When you think about, for example, the ways that patriarchy operates using the law to oppress women, I think that's something that goes way beyond your relationship with a man. Okay, if you look at how patriarchy influences the job market or the opportunities that are open to women. So yes, there may be a woman who is happy with the status quo in terms of her relationship with men. But then this is one example which I think all women who are partnered with men or married would relate to the issue of, for example, contraception for women. Now, the reason why so much research is done into contraception for women instead of balanced research into contraception for both men and women is because of patriarchy, plain and simple. Because patriarchy believes that women who should bear that burden of contraception, and we know that contraception is not entirely helpful for women. There have been side effects. I mean, there's so many issues that we have to deal with. So I feel like when we talk about feminism for people who feel like they are okay, we really need to be intentional about expanding it beyond the sphere of domestic relationships. We need to talk about the societal issues and how patriarchy affects the outcomes of our lives in ways that we may not even have considered. And I think that would be like a good way to draw in people who feel like they are okay. I think most of the time people feel like they're okay with oppression because they have not considered the extent of the oppression, or they feel like, oh, okay, these are the elements of the oppression. I'm fine with it. But I think it goes way deeper than that. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents. Thank you.
Does that help? I think it's an excellent contribution. Thank you,
Sorry.
Adelaide. Now,
You're
Akosua,
welcome.
there was a question that you missed. She was asking about how correct me if I don't get it right, but she was asking about how the perception of feminism in Ghana affects mother-daughter relationships, right? You can just,
more
okay.
along the issues of some of the issues you've already touched on in the conversation, how those are both resisted and then perpetuated in maternal relationships. So not just mother-daughter, but also grandmother-granddaughter relationships as well.
Okay.
Run of balance. I just got the news that I lost a family member.
I'm really sorry. You want to take some time?
No, it's fine. It's fine. All right. So the question is how feminism affects mother-daughter relationship or any type of like maternal sorry, I lost go ahead.
It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. You can take a moment. You don't have to power through this. But I will turn to the audience because we're all here because
the question. Let me say I can deal with
okay,
it.
all right, sure.
So I lost the question. Please answer the question again.
How feminism and the issues around it in Ghana, and I'm checking with you, can be perpetuated or resisted in maternal relationships.
Okay. I think that, right, with our mothers and our grandmothers, my friend would say, I don't think there's any saving with them. Because this is how I see it. I like to use my own personal experience. I grew up, my grandmother is a very strong woman. She raised all her children by herself, right? And then I see my mom, who never worked, never
It's okay. Let's give Akosua a moment. For those of you who missed it, she shared with us that when she left, she got news that she had lost a family member. So we will give her space. Yeah, my heart goes out to you, Akosua. I know you can't hear me from where you are, but she was saying something about, sorry, did somebody say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think that with the question that was asked, we could take comments from the
Yes,
audience.
that's what I wanted to do.
So
Yeah.
just pass the microphone around, and the question is really on how feminism affects mother-daughter relationships, not just mother-daughter relationships, but women relationships in families, if I'm correct. I'll just give you the microphone to ask one more.
Yes.
I'm just interested in this like duality, I think, also from my own experiences with my own Ghanaian mother, about how it's both simultaneously a space where the issues of some of the feminist issues we touched upon are both perpetuated and resisted in the same dynamic, and how that then shapes women in this context. Because I feel like for a lot of African women, obviously, women are kind of held as the transmitters of culture, but that is often gendered as well. So I'm interested.
Anybody have anything to share about that?
I'm not sure if this is like a direct answer, but this idea, there's like a lot of defense of men within like the female side of the family. Just this behavior that just it's why, like why are we doing this? I don't really have much of a point else, but I think the way it plays out is that women have the same leeway, the same generosity when it comes to people judging our actions or any of that. And I think in families, like you can really see that, like the men get cut a lot of slack, and then the women are expected to just pretty much be perfect, like be the perfect woman.
Yeah, there are two hands.
Okay, so okay.
I'm also really not an expert on the topic, but just from my own family experience, I think big part of this perpetuation of, maybe keeping like feminist thoughts down, maybe the education system as a whole is more of just this expectation that the child should be also like put in its place and not speak up and challenge the norms too much. So obviously, being a feminist, so asking, putting into question structural feminism, maybe will be put down by other generations or expected that you wait for your turn.
Great, thank you. Also, can I ask everybody speaking here to speak up so that those online can really hear us? But thank you for that.
Okay, so let's now come to the front now.
We have two more people, no, three.
I was just going to say that I think it depends a lot on the generation. So for instance, millennials, Gen Z, and now with social media, people are beginning to realize that they don't have to take particular behavior just because it has been meted out to them. So they can speak up, and there are communities of women that they can actually relate to. So when they go back to the family setting, and unfortunately, or well, it just so happens that their parents are not Gen Z or millennials, they'll definitely be defending some of the things that we might not see as normal anymore. So then there's a great divide, and it causes a lot of friction in terms of relationships between mothers and daughters. I say this because I realize that when I'm talking to most of my friends, even though some of them still have the idea that, oh, the man must do everything and we should allow men, but then you realize that more often than not, everyone feels like they now have a voice and they now feel like their ideas should be heard. And unfortunately, their parents or their mothers do not agree with them. So there's a lot of rebellion, and it's affected a lot of mother-daughter relationships that we have now. So I do think that these issues are affecting mother-daughter relationships, especially now that there's a great divide between different generations and how they behave.
Thank you.
Okay, I just want to also add to that. Okay. Does anyone want to?
Yeah, she had her hand up.
Okay, then
Hi. So I can sort of piggyback on what you said and talking about the whole the different generations. That's what I was going to talk about, and how I have a lot of conversations with my mom and my grandmother, and within our conversations, I see the different parts where they're coming from. My grandmom at a point stopped working and then stayed home to take care of her grandkids actually. But my mom has continued to work throughout. And with my grandmother, when I talk to her, her expectation of me is, okay, so when are you getting married? when is that happening? Like, oh, you're done with school, you're working now, when is marriage? When I have conversations with my mom, is, have you started applying for your master's? So the different generations also show there's a lot of difference when you look within the generation.
Thank you. Liz?
Yeah, I guess my point is also in line with the difference in generations. And I just feel that no matter what happens, every set of women in a generation would live in a different world than the other, just before or after them. And so there will always be those issues because, again, also the world is advancing in a way that people are becoming more aware and more bold, as she said, to speak out and question. Most important, people are questioning things and not just questioning them in their mind and letting it stay there, but they are speaking about it and they have realized they are seeing other women take action. And so it's causing a difference. But then there's this conversation I had with a friend, a male friend a few days ago, and he was saying that, well, aren't women enablers of the patriarchy? Because, and I asked him why, and he said, well, I mean, his sister speaks to his mom, their mom about life. And the mom is like, oh, we are 2 to 9. Oh, worry, won't you marry? Don't you have a boy? What's wrong with you? You know, me, I married, I had you when I was 28. So we are 1 year late, you know. And then also the conversation about if he has 2 sisters, so this is the younger one. Now the older one who is married comes home to the mom with marital issues, and she says, oh, that's how men are. You have to take it like that. And then the older sister asks the mom, like, why didn't you tell me these things before I got into the marriage? When I was dating this guy, things were rosy. You didn't tell me about the things I should expect when I get into marriage. Maybe I would have married him, but I would have taken time to correct a few things before I get myself into this mess. And so for him, he feels that women are sometimes enablers of the patriarchy, where the advice that older women give younger girls makes them go into certain things that they may not want to, or they may not do if those questions are not always pushed to them. And then he said something also very important, that I should look within myself and ask, who are the women asking me that? Who are the people in society asking me, where is your boyfriend? Aren't there more women than men? And actually, it's true. I have more women asking me, oh boy, Wahine, don't worry, where are your twin children? We blessed you years ago. Where are they? Oh, you are doing well, but then where is your man? Oh, are you okay? Are you, maybe your attitude? Oh, maybe you are too picky, you know? And it's women who are telling me these things, truthfully. And so there's something to be asked there. There's something to look at. The women need to look within themselves to see what we are doing wrong, so that the younger generation would be more confident in exploring, doing what they want and finding the space, because we all can't be married. We all can't be married and have kids. We all can't be married till death. Some of us are going to be single parents. You never know. And so that ideology of marriage is the ultimate should be broken down a bit, and it has to start with women and how we advise each other.
Thank you. Yeah, you made a lot of great points. And then it reminded me of, oh, you want to speak? Yeah, surely. It reminded me of conversations I've had with my grandmother and my mother. And I will come back to it, but I want to hear what you have to say.
I'll just pick something from what you said. Majority of us today, for me, most of the advice you get from our mothers, you hear me? Most
Yeah.
of the advice you get from our mothers are from the experiences they had when they were kids. So my grandmother and my grandfather divorced and it was like a broken home. So my mother having that experience didn't want that kind of life for her kids. So coming forward, my mom always says, when you get married, you want your husband to be the man in the head. So with that kind of experience she had, she's giving that she doesn't want whole broken home thing.
Can you speak up? People online are struggling to hear you.
So with that kind of advice and experience, hello, yeah. So it's based on experiences, and when I see my parents, not that they don't have a great marriage, but when I see them together, I see a lot of flaws because she doesn't want that kind of experience for us. And when I see that, I don't think it's really a good environment for myself. I'm not really into the marriage thing because of the way I see them, even though I can see the flaws, they don't see it. And she has the rose colored the experience she had when she was a child. So majority of the advice you get from our parents are from the experience they had in their child. See how their homes where you don't want to transfer that to their children. That's how it's like.
Okay, so kind of like every generation trying to correct some flaws they've seen, but also doing it in a way that doesn't serve those that come after them. I was thinking when Liz said what she said, I was really thinking about that because not only does that have impact on the daughter who wants to get married to a man, but it also says the only options you have are to get married to a man. And we know that, I mean, they are queer women who are Ghanaian and they deserve full lives, full of love, without this pressure. But that really reminded me of conversations with my mother and my grandmother. And I am learning to give grace because nobody knows the harms of patriarchy more than the women who have come before us. For example, my grandmother will tell you when you get your money, you split it into three. You pull one, you tie it, and you throw it, and you don't tell anyone about it, especially your husband, because of the realities that her generation faced. But now, and also it was so violent that they could not even imagine taking certain liberties that now our generation can have due to organizing and feminist fights that some of people in their generation took part of. So now they look at us and they want to protect us by saying, oh my God, what you are doing might have very bad consequences for you. For example, you will not marry because to her, in her time, if you don't marry, you are an outcast. So in a way, it's very annoying because it feels like you are not seen, but I'm also learning to give grace because they know, I mean, my grandmother told me a proverb that says, so basically a man is not a pillow that you can rely on or rest your head on. That's men are trash of her generation. So it's not new, but they just had different strategies that they felt they were safe enough to participate in at the time. So I also see another hand up. Akosua, we turned this into a fireside chat. So we're still going around a little bit. We can relax. We'll come back to you to wrap things up. But I see one hand.
Hello. So I want to speak to the original question asked, and I'm not a woman, and I have a sister, and I see her relationship with my mom and also my non-biological mother. And in my experience, the relationship between women, like on the maternal and like you described, it's the older women tend to be centrist in a certain sense. They tend to agree with you in some aspects that you should be free from your husband to some extent, and you should live your life as fully as possible. And I see it coming from their experiences and suffering from male oppression or suffering from patriarchy. But on the other hand, they tend to give advice for you to submit to the patriarchy or to submit to your husband. And I see it coming from two aspects. One is, shall I say, peer pressure or societal pressure. A woman is expected to live in certain ways. So
your mom won't want you to live in ways that will give you a certain bad life and give her a certain bad life for not raising you right. That's one of the reasons for them to not come all the way to give like feminist advice or advice that fully liberates you. And the second bit is religion, especially in the Ghanaian context, because we are deeply religious, and one of the points that enables and justifies patriarchy is religion, because upon as much as people want you to be free, when it comes down to it, the religion, I can speak for Christians, I can't speak for Islam, but in Christianity, it's expected that however free you are, the woman is supposed to submit to her husband. So especially if you're the mom, the mother, or the grandmother, or the auntie is deeply religious, they will hope for the best for you, especially if they love you. They'll hope for the best for you, but the line that they will not cross is that you should submit to your husband because it's a Christian and expected to do. So it's part of the dynamics of it, but yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we will go back online and go back to Akosua. Akosua, we shared a lot about our personal experiences with family and how we can resist, and sometimes how the people closest to us, the women closest to us, are the agents of patriarchy in our lives, and how we can give grace to them and yet still achieve better freedoms for ourselves and women of our generation. There is a comment from Adelaide. Oh, somebody said that's Enoch, I hear the voice. So somebody is online and recognize the voice. Another person said, I agree 100%. You hit the nail right on the head. Societal expectations and the influence of religion. Thank you. Akosua, we want to wrap up. Welcome back.
I am so sorry,
yes.
but I apologize.
No problem.
But let me add,
don't even worry.
And I had a lot of things that I want to add to it. Once they were speaking, I remembered Ijeoma Amabenyo's poetry that said that nobody warned you that the women whose feet you cut will give birth to daughters with wings. And as people were talking about their mother and their grandmother, I also want to say that it's not always negative, like the relationship that we have with our parents. And somebody said that the advice they give to us is stems from the experiences of what they have learned from their own lives. And this is extremely true, especially with my life, where my mom grew up in a very abusive relationship. My mom had me when she was 21. My grandmother had me when she was 20. I am 29. I don't even have a boyfriend. I don't even have a husband. I don't have kids, right? But my mom is not worried about that. She is more focused. And I also grew up very poor. So my mom and my grandmother's experiences, you are the one to break this generational curse. You are the one to go to school, to get an education, to get a degree, whatever time that you get married. So with me and my mom, there isn't that friction, right? So I also wanted to say that it's the relationship that we have with our parents when it comes to about feminism. It doesn't always have to be negative, because our parents and our grandmothers have also seen how their lives were. And now that they have seen the life that we can achieve by going to school, by living life on our own terms. And some of them want that for us. Some of them want us to live a life where they didn't have to always depend on a man, always be waiting for someone to feed them at their mercy. They've seen how we can live our lives when we expect when we go further. So I wanted to say that it's not always. Sorry, it's been a long morning this day. I apologize. I had so much expectations, but I just lost my grandma. So it's been tough right now. But thank you. So yeah. That's
yeah, thank you. You make a good point. No, it's fine. You're fine. Trust me, you're fine. Yeah, so I wanted to end by asking, what would a feminist future for Ghanaian women look like? I want to end us on a positive note, looking forward. what is your vision? And I want it to be very real, no, abstract visions. Akosua, what is the picture in your mind when you dream of a feminist freedom future, if that makes sense, for Ghanaian women?
I dream of as I said, a mass-based political feminist movement, because my work involves mostly working in extremely poor rural communities. And I see the damage of patriarchy. I see the damage that is being done. I hope that we do a lot of grassroots work that will involve, and I say that especially, example that I had here was during the pandemic, we're still during the lockdown. And then there was people who started having this online thing where if you're experiencing abuse, call this number. It was a lot. And then people also had, there was shelter. But then we forgot that in Ghana, we don't have a culture that tells women to go to shelters. We don't have a culture that tells women to seek help. We have a culture that tells women to stay, a culture that tells women to endure. And so all of a sudden, everybody was chiming in, but we hadn't done the grassroots level of telling women that, especially women who live in the rural areas, that if you're experiencing domestic violence, this is the help for you. You can, and there was the channel, right? And even if they come to the shelter, how are we going to integrate them back to society? Because we don't want them to go back to the same system. Because if they go, we know that the men are likely to kill them, right? So I wish for a feminist movement that encompasses the knowledge, the awareness of all women from the margins to the center, where we do a lot of grassroots level to reach out to the women who are disproportionately disenfranchised, where we organize across, and not only on what we know, because until we do that, it's not going to be, our feminism is not going to be very impactful or very transformative. And I do have hope, because I've seen a lot of literature, a lot of work I saw how you and Fatima did the LGBTQI, always organizing, and now we have the case against the Whole 21 has been put out from the court, but that was bullshit. I saw all that. So I do have hope that we will get there if we do really put in the work, and we bring all voices. We reach across and bring all voices into the movement. I think the future is really bright for feminists in Ghana.
Thank you, and it's grassroots led. I see one hand up, Sheila. You will be the last intervention, so go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much for this incredible moderation, Nanaya. This has been so nice to listen to. And there are just certain things going through my mind as the discussions were going through. And I just wanted to pause a minute and figure out if I can carve out a time from this moderation, and to make room for those of us who process things much differently, i.e. neurodivergence. Because usually when this discourse goes on, there are so many things that are being discussed that at the end of the discourse, there's just little that you're able to capture. So there were just some key takeaways that I have gotten that I wanted to share for those of us who may not necessarily have gotten the breadth and length of the conversation. And one is awareness. The idea that feminism is expanding our choices for women, especially, of course, beyond the limitation of the patriarchal system that we have grown in and gotten used to. I'm actually highlighting this in particular because usually when we have these discourses, people still ask, what is the basis of feminism, right? I think concretely, of course, in text and in books, we have a definition, but what does it actually look like in practice, right? And I think somebody shared this, and I'm capturing that to share it with anybody that asks me for the definition of feminism going forward. Also, one key thing is a question, but I don't know whether it can be talked about now. But I've been thinking about how do we make vocabulary for the revolution to be more accessible, i.e. to describe the truths that will make accessibility possible for the in terms of grassroots organizing, right, for the women in the margins, because I am currently based in Tamale and I work with women directly on the field. What I have found as a big challenge is actually able to water down these words for the women to actually get the idea of what stepping into themselves and their choices, the myriad of choices that they can, have access to. It's just so difficult most times. And of course, even when you have a translator trying to water it down to the language, there is still no language on the basis for these women to get it. And I think that is something that, the further conversation could really border on. So that, yes, of course, bordering on the basis of inclusivity, is not elite. Feminism is not for the elite. It's for every woman, and every person that believes that all of us deserves an equal opportunity to have a very full and soft life. So yeah, these are just the things that I'm thinking about generally, and also. I believe that in the subsequent, it's okay. This is something that I should just ponder on myself. So yeah, all in all, thank you so much, Nanaya. This has been incredible, and I'm very happy to have been part of this. And also, Akosua, thank you so much for taking care of what was important. You made this moderation pretty incredible, and also sharing your myriad of experiences is always so lovely to listen to you. On all your platforms. Thank you so much for all that you do on the ground, and for being your full self every time. Thank you, Akosua.
Thank you. Let me answer the question of language real quick, right? Because I also do work in the rural areas. And I think that when we talk about language, what we don't also take into consideration the local languages, right? The indigenous languages, right? And so especially women in Damongo, they have their own languages that they use. Oppression, sexism, they have the local language. And so when we talk about language, we don't always have to focus on the English, because that if we are working on inclusivity, we have to also take into consideration the differences of every woman. And so I think for the language, there is a language that we need to let the women be able to use their local languages to express themselves. Because if local knowledge is also knowledge, right? As I said, in Mali, the women use their own local knowledge in solving their own problems. And so I think that the language, we don't always have to go and impose, like, speak English language, because it is so difficult, especially in Damongo where they speak their language. It is so difficult to find a common ground in the English language. But then if you let them use their own language to define their own terms, to give them a full understanding, I think that is also power, right? To know that you have control and you have power of what comes out from your mouth. But I think that the language, we should also give grace. We also let the women be able to use their own language in defining their own realities for themselves as well.
Okay, thank you. I think that really answered nicely. We bridged the gap by learning their language and with grassroots organizing.
By letting them use their own language to express themselves.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Akosua. You have been a rock star today. Also because the other person we wanted to join could not join us. So we became the only panelist. And also thank you to the audience here and online. We all became panelists today and we had our little fireside chats. We've talked feminist culture. I think we really have done justice to the topic. So thank you all. My name is Nanaya and it's been a pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Nanaya. You have been an amazing moderator. And I don't know if Akosua is still there, but really sorry to hear about the passing of your grandmother. And thank you for having the strength to continue with us regardless. We really appreciate that. And we'll take a few minutes off, and then when we come back in about 5 minutes, we will be showing videos and listening to audios of what it means to be a woman in Ghana today. So as part of the WomanFest, we had a team that went out to collect opinions from women in forms of audios and videos. So we want to play that for you. That will be for about 10-15 minutes, and then we can have a roundtable discussion on what your thoughts are on the meaning of being a woman in Ghana today. So just give us about 3 minutes to set up, and then we can have the conversation. So you can go grab a drink or some snacks and then come back. Thank you.
I can end this. Okay.